Stacy just left a comment on an old video of mine about nursing beyond infancy, how nursing toddlers, preschoolers is pretty normal in both human evolution and globally. But in the United States, right, big formula pays to make sure that breastfeeding is vilified. We let formula companies in the United States do all kinds of unethical shit, violate the entire UN code on marketing breast milk substitutes. The number one purchaser of formula in the United States is the federal government for the WIC program. And that means that the formula industry is heavily, heavily subsidized by our tax dollars. And they have a tremendous financial incentive to make sure that a breastfeeding pair, right, the mother-baby dyad, fails at breastfeeding. I can go on that rant all day long. But in the context of that video, Stacy asked, do you have any suggestions for biting? Is this a sign that the baby is weaning or that they're over it? I would like to continue, but biting hurts. So I just want to clarify, Stacy, I am not an IBCLC. I am just somebody who worked for WIC. I did breastfeeding peer counseling. I breastfed 4 children. I spent almost 12 years of my life either pregnant or breastfeeding or both at the same time. But this is still technically, right, like a lay opinion. So if you're really struggling, I would encourage you to reach out to an IBCLC, not a lactation nurse, not your pediatrician. They don't really have any training in lactation, but to an IBCLC. That's an international board certified lactation consultant. What worked for me for biting, I see a lot of really, really bad advice that actually kind of sets up that dynamic of coercive parenting or like retribution in parenting, this idea that our children should be punished. That starts as early as this dynamic when an infant is biting when they're breastfeeding. All right, in our family we don't do punishments. But so often I see on forums, and especially when I was nursing my kids and I was struggling with this, the advice would be, oh, if your kid bites you, then you thump them. Or you stick your finger in there and get them to let go, and then there's something harsh, right? A loud no or something to startle them so they won't do that behavior again. Or just like a punishment mindset from the get-go, because it's so deeply entrenched in our society, like our social consciousness, that the way to raise children is with authoritarian parenting, is with a punitive mindset. And it's so destructive. I could go on endlessly about how I think that an authoritarian mindset has really led us to where we are right now in the US. What I have found most successful is that when your child is nursing and they bite for whatever reason, sometimes when an infant is falling asleep, then they will end up clamping down. Sometimes when your nursling is cutting teeth and their gums are sore, right, they'll gnaw on you a little bit in an attempt to soothe themselves, because breastfeeding is soothing and their gums hurt. And so maybe this will also be soothing if I just, chomp on mom a little bit. Or maybe they're just exploring and they're trying to see what kind of reaction they can get out of you, because children learn by interacting with their environment, and they don't know any better. And right, infants, they can't conceive of the fact that they're hurting their mom. They can't conceive of the fact that they're causing pain. I know evangelical culture likes to tell us that our children have original sin, and everything that children do is like perceived through this lens of it must be naughty or willful or disobedient. Y'all, if your nursling bites you, they have no malicious intent. We are superimposing motivation onto infants and toddlers that they just don't have. So when I would nurse my kid and he or she would bite me, the correct response is to not have an emotional reaction, right? Because you don't want to reinforce that behavior, right? Oh, mom makes a funny face and she makes a loud noise and then I laugh because that's entertaining. We don't want to set up that dynamic, establish that pattern where our kid thinks, biting is something that will make mom make a funny face. And also, you don't want to pull back or try and pull your baby off, because then you can just traumatize your own tissues, right? Instead, you want to place your hand on the back of your child's head and actually push them into the breast tissue. When you do that, it stimulates your child to open their mouth. I know it seems counterintuitive. I know that you want to pull away, but don't push them into you. Then they're getting that boob smashed in their face and they will open up, right? And then you can assess what the situation looks like. You don't want to have a big dramatic response. You don't want it to be something that your child finds funny because they don't understand any of the context. They don't really understand that they hurt you. You want to make sure that you aren't injured. And then maybe try and figure out what is the motivation, what is the reason, right? Because babies can do it, toddlers can do it for a number of different reasons. Is this a situation where maybe your baby wants a frozen washcloth to chew on and suck on because they're teething pretty bad? Are they just kind of exploring? Are they bored? Biting while breastfeeding is a very, very normal part of development. It's a pretty universal experience. And so there's nothing wrong or cruel or bad or naughty about your child. There's nothing you're doing that is wrong as a parent. You're not failing in any way. Your child is not being malicious. They're not trying to hurt you. But yeah, what has worked for me, kid after kid after kid, after kid, there's 4 of them, is to just do that, like hand on the back of the head, push them into you. They don't really want a nose full and too much of a mouthful of boob, and they'll let go. And then take that time to reassess. If you're really upset, take a break for a second, kind of recenter yourself and figure out what your next steps will be.